What am I doing? Hello, where'd I go? I'm not here. Maybe I am here. Can you hear me? That is very strange. Please aside. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Rickcast. This is Rickcast, and I'm very happy that you guys are here, despite the technical issues. And we got some good stories tonight. We got some things to discuss. Not as action-packed as last night, but it's going to be a good show because you guys always make the show that much better. So I appreciate that. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, do all the fun things that help the show grow. Wherever you are watching, on Getter, on Rumble, YouTube, X, etc. Oh my! The thing changed up everything. You even changed up my mic. That's interesting. All right. Yes. And Flippy was striking back for a while, so it is what it is in that regard. All right, yeah, good evening, G Money. So it is. Oh, look at that. We actually have the little beta thing here on StreamYard where they're like, oh, you can see the comments on screen. So we'll be little guinea pigs. So there it is. There you guys are. You guys will, when you comment, at least on now, if you comment on Getter or on Rumble, StreamYard is not good enough to bring those comments in, but YouTube, Facebook, X, or Twitch, my one watcher on Twitch, they'll import onto the screen. So be careful what you write, and if you're gonna call me nasty things, at least spell it correctly. So we have an excellent show for you, as always, and I know, yeah. For some reason, G Money, the snowball, which is what they call it, the snowball was set, and then something happened, and then it reconnected back to the. I don't like how everything comes with a mic now. Do you notice that? Well, maybe you don't if you're not in this. Like the camera has a mic, the phone has a mic, the computer has a mic, my soda can has a mic. Well, it's just so the deep state can spy on you. But everything has mics on it now. So if it disconnects, you're going to be like my screwdriver over there, my power screwdriver over there. That thing's got a mic. So in case something happens. Good evening, Brother Dean. Good to see you as always, my friend. Happy to have you with us. So yes, I'm sorry that it defaulted back to the wrong mic, but we're good now. We have the correct one. But let's see. All right. So Nace Mace is the reason women shouldn't be in politics. I'm sorry to say it. It's a misogyny alert, but it's true. It's kind of gross and disgusting the lengths that she'll go for attention. There's a difference between what the issue she's trying to bring attention to and what she does. And she is one of the final bosses of covert feminism, which we talk about on the show often, where conservative women, quote unquote conservative women, get elected to office. They host podcasts, they host shows, and they push feminism with conservative talking points. Best example, Megyn Kelly, Tomi Lahren, Nace Mace. You know who they are. You've seen them because they're all over the place. But it's just another example why, my personal opinion, women should not be involved in politics. Not because I think women are stupid, but I just don't think the arena plays to their strengths. You can disagree with me or agree with me. I don't really care. After that, Steve Bannon is continuing to attack our Holy Father. I will be one of the only people to push back on him, even on Getter. I mean, he's very big on Getter. And it's not because I don't like Steve Bannon. It's not because I'm pushing back on Steve Bannon because I hate him. I'm just trying to present a counter argument. He's presenting one side. I'd like to present another. And that's what's going to happen there. I am a little annoyed that he's continuing to go after the Pope. But we'll see. I'll present my case, and hopefully that'll be out there. The rise of little Marco has been fantastic. I've much enjoyed watching little Marco ascend to his current MVP status today, and he continued that in a hearing where he pretty much went 1v however many Democrats were on the committee and pretty much smoked all of them. Now, I'm not one of these cheerleader types that is like, oh my gosh, this, that, he's so great. But it was pretty good to see little Marco do what he did today. And so we'll talk about that. And then finally, I know my audience is going to be very happy to hear this, but apparently they're making a First Blood prequel. That's right. The classic Christmas movie, First Blood. If you know, there's Christmas movies and Christmas theme, Christmas time movies and Christmas movies. First Blood is a Christmas time movie without Sylvester Stallone. So they're deciding to make a First Blood prequel because Hollywood will literally squeeze blood out of anything. And that's kind of a double entendre at this point to try and keep everything from trying to be relevant. But keeping Stallone out of it, bad idea. Real bad idea. Not liking this at all. Yes, Dean, the other girl boss is Lauren Boebert, and she like they always compete for attention. It's bad, but women compete for attention. What do you want? That's what they do. That's why women compete for attention and men can live in a studio apartment with an air mattress. Because it is what it is in that regard. But yeah, they're gonna ruin First Blood because they're gonna retcon Rambo into being a trans activist who actually never went to war, and he's all these other kinds of things. But we'll get to that towards the end. But like I said, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Looks like everybody has filtered in. Let's get to some hot takes. Couple stories to be aware of as we see. Nope. Is that it? No, I don't know. Yes, it's this one. Now, too many screens, not enough time. All right. First story up today. The WHO, not the band, but the World Health Organization, has adopted a global pandemic accord, but U.S. absent casts doubts. I wonder why they're working super hard to get a global pandemic accord in place. Interesting. Members of the World Health Organization adopted an agreement on Tuesday intended to improve, quote unquote, preparedness for future pandemics following the disjointed global response to the superbug jab. But the absence of the U.S. casts doubt on the treaty's effectiveness. After 3 years of negotiations, the legally binding pact was adopted by the World Health Assembly in Geneva, who member countries welcomed its passing with applause, yada yada. The pact was touted as a victory for members of the Global Health Agency at the time when multilateral organizations like the WHO have been battered with sharp cuts. Because I don't really care about the WHO, and I don't really care about your world funding. But the agreement is victory for public health, science, and multilateral, blah, blah, blah. Just know that they passed this, and the next time the cough jab takes place, that they will try to enforce this. The U.S. will get back in there. And I really do appreciate you guys trying to get Comments all the way to the top. Oh, I love it. I love it. Great job. So that's your hot take there. Second hot take. Let's see. From theblaze.com, Senate unanimously codifies Trump's no tax on tips policy. So congratulations, I guess, if you're in a the real bad thing is now everybody's going to be asking for tips for everything, especially if we're not getting taxed on them. So it is what it is in that order. But the Senate unanimously passed President Donald Trump's popular policy eliminating federal income tax on tipping wages, fulfilling yet another campaign promise. The No Tax on Tips Act passed with 100 votes in the Senate on Tuesday, with Republicans Ted Cruz and Democrat Jackie Roslin of Nevada spearheading the legislation. Trump campaigned on the very issue, become a very popular feature of his big, beautiful bill in the House, marking another bipartisan win for Americans. This legislation will have lasting impact on millions of Americans by protecting their hard-earned dollars of blue-collared workers, the very people who are living paycheck to paycheck. So, is this a good idea? Sure, because taxes are theft. Taxation is theft, and we should eliminate every single bit of taxes that we can. I kind of just wish we would not stop at taxes on tips. What about taxes on overtime? What about taxes on bonuses? What about taxes on all these other things that the government steals from you on a daily basis? Get rid of the federal death tax, right? The estate tax. The fact that now, if a state wants to hit you with a death tax, that sucks, but it is what it is. Just don't live in a state that does that. But federally, nah, there shouldn't be a death tax on that. If you die, the government should be like, before you go, by the way, before we put you in the ground, we need one more tax from you. But that's what they do. And so, good. I'm happy to see this. Right? That's right. That's right. I know it's on the bottom of the screen, but let's highlight that. The beer tax needs to go. Let my beer be free should be the motto. Let my beer be free, as it should, because I like beer. So there you go. Big, beautiful bill. They got at least the no tax on tips. Everybody can run back to their district and say they can pretend that I actually did something, even though they didn't, or this is like the first thing they've actually done. That's an easy campaign issue to win on, right? That too, right? Right? All sin taxes need to go. Sin taxes are ridiculous. It's almost like it's an oxymoron. Because taxes in a way is a sin. So if it's a sin tax, it's a sin. But the fact is, I think it's ridiculous. You know, I would love to see taxes abolished. The whole abolishing taxes and getting rid of them with tariffs, I'm in favor of. But even if we went to a flat tax where you only got as much as it is, that would be great. But all sin tax, I agree, Michael, need to go. I don't know. I don't think I'm that. I just I'm in favor of letting the beer be free, even though I don't drink it, but I know people who do, and you guys shouldn't be burdened with extra. Well, yes, the ATF absolutely needs to go, Dean. 110%. 110% on that. I agree. That there's an interesting bill. The Hearing Protection Act is going through, which would get suppressors or silencers or cans or whatever you want to call them off the NFA, so you combine with a 4473, which would be fantastic. But we'll talk about that when that actually goes. But we'll see what happens here during the next parts of this session. Because they actually since they passed the no tax on tips bill, that means Congress is legally obligated not to do anything else. Not to do anything else for the rest of this month. They're good until the summer break, right? I think they take the summer break in June, which I'm fine with. Great. Go away. Go by. Don't do anything. Leave. Well, let's see. All right, let's get to our first story of the night. Oh, Nace Mace. Nancy. South Carolina, Steve Cunningham's own Nace Mace. Further proof that women should not be in politics, that they don't belong there, even though that makes that rings the misogyny alarm. That's right, you are in a misogynist zone right now. Nace Mace is a covert feminist. She pushes feminism under the guise of conservative values. She was the one that broke the glass at the Citadel. Her father, I think, was in charge of it, was whatever the name is, the headmaster, whatever, then came out of retirement so he could shepherd her through so she could be the first graduate. And of course, now she runs around talking about protecting women's spaces when she did not have that regard of protecting men's spaces by destroying the Citadel and therefore making a template to destroy all other male-only spaces. But now she's got a problem with that. And, with the trans issue, trying to keep women, men's out of women's bathrooms and all of that kind of stuff. And today she just kind of dropped this tweet. She's going to just drop this tweet today. We're all just existing normally in our life. Just, everything's fine. Everything's good. And then Nancy's just coming out of nowhere, coming in hot with her random tweet talking about how she's going to go to the floor today. And she is going to, let me see if I can find the actual, well, actually, no, I'll just play you the video. There's nothing bad in it. Don't worry. But yeah, everybody was just having a normal Tuesday. And then Nace Mace said, I need attention.
Dissect what that guy did to dozens of women hidden on a hidden camera and other devices as he recorded them with impunity, without their knowledge, without their permission, and without their consent. Patrick Bryant, I hope you're ready. I'm also going to be sharing some of the imagery that Patrick Bryant, that guy right there, took of myself and other women without our knowledge, without our permission, without our consent. Naked bodies, women's legs spread apart, different genital areas. And he had a catalog almost, I think, these different fetishes of what types of videos and photos he liked to capture of women without their knowledge. I'll go over that too. I'm also going to be going over some of the bills that I've worked on, particularly on voyeurism, the Sue Voyeurs Act and the Stop Voyeurs Act. Those bills were born out of the videos I saw of myself and many other women, because this is not about me. I'm fighting for their rights. We have 3 witnesses coming in today, and I hope that you'll tune in to hear my questions of the experts and see some of the evidence this guy did to women, to hurt them, to strip away their privacy. And he did it for years. And he saved those files of those women for years, one up to a decade. This man still roams free to film women without their knowledge, without their permission, without their consent. Nothing is stopping him from continuing to do that.
So she alleges that her former fiance recorded her and possesses over 10,000 explicit videos and photos. The first question is obviously voyeurism or any of these other kinds of things is not something we approve of. We don't approve of it. That's terrible. We don't ever want to have women be victimized and have their personal space and things like that shattered. Obviously, nobody is condemning that. But my question is, you were engaged in the relationship with him. Now, I'm not saying that's consent, blah, 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 blah. But you don't rack up 10,000 explicit videos and photos without some idea. All I'm saying is you have to have some idea that you're getting 10,000 videos recorded of you. I don't know. Does that just seem like a little, I got 10,000. He has 10,000 videos of me. that's just coming up now. It's just dawning on you now that this happened. It's just something that people have to ask in that regard. And so it's interesting that this is the case. So Rep Nace Mace has displayed nude photos of herself. Here's the thing. You can show the photos, but could you at least redact them for decency's sake? Do you have to do this? That's my question. Do you have to do the shock value? Right? It can't call. I mean, Congress spends $50,000 on a toilet seat. You guys can't spend $20 and go to Staples and get some black bars and like Velcro them over the private areas. You know, it takes me, if I need to blur something out, or I can take me like 15 minutes in Canva to do it. And she can't blur those images out. She can't, you know, spare men's eyes from that, because that's uncharitable. If you're going to do that, if you're going to expose yourself in the name of being exposed, I don't think that is uncharitable to men. Men should not have to see that. If I'm a married husband of 2 in the Senate or in the House, and I'm with my wife, you know, I'm married to my wife and I don't need to see another woman's naked body. Don't put me in that place. Have some decency for the rest of us. Obviously, if it was a crime, we're sorry and we're here to try and fix it. But in the other way, have some charity for the men that are going to have to look at this. Because, you know, men are visual creatures. And now, guess what, Nace Mace? The people in the house that you work with the men will always associate those images with you every time they see you from now to the end of time. I know you don't want to hear that. Even if they don't want to do that, it's going to happen. I'm sorry. You have shown them your most vulnerable state because you didn't take the time to blur the images, to block out the images, to do anything. You're showing them everything. How the male mind works, they will think of that every time they see you. Can you call them the victim now from now on? Can you call yourself a victim if that, well, these guys, all they do is think of me naked when you showed them this? You showed them this. The man took your pictures without your consent. These are your allegations. You did not have to take the next step and show those videos in their full form to everybody. You could have had the decency to blur them out. Now, we're not saying that it's a good thing that you're a victim of voyeurism by your ex-fiance and cited growing hidden camera surveillance in private spaces as a wider concern. That's you know, the whole thing is, where do private spaces begin? And I'm just going to throw this out there. You know, you were engaged to this man and you guys were in his home, or you were in his home, the home of a man that you agreed to marry. By the way, this is a woman that brags about, you know, engaging in the marital act before going to a prayer breakfast. So let's not pretend that she's a wholesome victim here, or that she's never used the idea of her sexuality to her advantage before. That's the problem, is that you have this trail of other events that you've done. So then you cry victim now, or you were asking us to see you as a victim. Now it's like, well, were you a victim when was this the guy that she slept with before the prayer breakfast? I didn't even look that up. I'm just thinking that out loud. Is this the actual guy? Because is that his fault that you bragged about it before the prayer breakfast now? Is that going to be put back on him? That you ran your mouth beforehand? It's a question. Is he liable for all of your actions? Essentially, it was a security camera in the house, which is weird, by the way. I don't understand why people put security cameras like in houses now, in living rooms and stuff like that. I kind of get it if you have kids. you know, if you have kids, you watch them when you're going away. But you see these videos on like Instagram or X or like, oh, and it's videos of people's like kitchens and things like that's weird. I would never do that and get people more than happy to do so. I mean, that's another thing to put up, Lou. She is not afraid to wear outfits. Let's just say that. So I know it sounds like we're victim shaming, slut shaming. I understand what she's doing, and I think it's fine that she even brings this up, the voyeurism thing. Here's my objection. Why couldn't you blur out the video? We get the idea if it's like, and that's me in the blurred image. We're going to take your word for it. You don't have to show it. She urged Congress to advance 2 privacy bills, the Sue Voyeur Act and the Stop Voyeurs Act, which will allow victims to sue offenders and expel federal prosecution beyond federal land crimes. Once again, we have to ask the question, if you enter somebody's private property, and that a home is a private property, does that person need to get your consent for you to obviously these photos weren't in the bathroom or in any private areas. It looks like they were in public spaces. So I don't like the idea of her using this to advance more overreach from the federal standpoint. I don't like it. I don't like that at all. Now, Bryant categorically denied all allegations against him, calling them baseless and affirming he will cooperate fully to clear his name. South Carolina Law Enforcement Division opened an active, complex investigation into the assault, harassment, and voyeurism claims related to Make's accusations, with a case to be filed to be released after the completion. So also he said that Nancy and I were, this is Bryant, Nancy and I were in a relationship for 3 years and engaged to marry each other. I loved and believed in her, which is why the betrayal and lies are especially hurtful. I strongly deny all her criminal allegations and take this matter very seriously. Prepared to cooperate fully. Mace alleges that he repeatedly took photos of women who were in the buff and filmed aggressively, evil, bad things, according to the transcript of her opening remarks. And I don't know, in this world where women have used those accusations, right? We've got a lot of examples of women using essay examples to get out of things. We've talked about it on the show before. The military is rife with them, where men and women are not supposed to hook up, and if they get caught hooking up, there have been many examples of women saying, well, that guy essayed me. And then she is not given any repercussions and he gets tossed out of the military. There was Mattress Girl. There was that issue with Mattress Girl. There's a lot of stories. There's the Duke Lacrosse case is one of the most famous, where essays were alleged and people believed it, but it was ultimately proven that essay did not happen. So it's not that we do not believe or we don't want to shame Nancy Mace in this regard, but we also don't want to throw out things like this lightly. And we know Nancy is a bit of a drama queen when it comes to this stuff. Look at her other stuff with the trans bathroom and all the other things. She's walking around with a sling in her arm because she's a bit attracted to the drama. And I know she's been divorced a couple times. Obviously, she was engaged to this guy and broke it off. So it's not. It's a fine line, and I think she's going to find that bringing this up in this manner is going to cause more questions in regards to, like, do we really want to do this if you're engaged to be married to the person and you're in their home, and what constitutes what? There's a lot of gray area here, and it's kind of being thrown out like, believe the women or you're an awful person and you believe that women are that, and we don't. But we also have to understand that in a legal sense, there are two sides to this story. There are two sides to this. And especially after the Pound Me Too movement, where a lot of men were run off or falsely accused or all these other things, a lot of people post the Pound Me Too and are like, well, we want to believe you. We want to make sure actual victims are taken care of. But at the same time, are you using it in a way to get revenge or for whatever reason? There has to be, for something as serious as SA, there has to be some guardrails. So that way, true victims of SA get the justice they so deserve. Of course, let's just get the religious part in here. This all stems from a fallen culture that engages in fornication. And if we didn't engage in fornication and hookup culture, and we actually waited for people to get married before they actually engaged in what we like to call the marital act, if we engaged in that, most of this stuff wouldn't be a problem. I know that's a very prude way of saying it, but if you followed the biblical values, the values that the church teaches, where man and woman, man courts woman, they marry each other, they vow to be with each other, and then they engage in the marital act for bonding and children and all these other things, which is what the marital act is for, not for selfish hookup culture. And stuff like this is what selfish hookup culture gets you. And it's just messy and nobody's happy about it. You know, of course, the gooner internet is like, Nace Mace naked. It's like, come on, guys. You know, pick up your jaw for 5 seconds. Anyway, that's the first story. We'll see how that evolves here on Rickcast. But it's sticky. It's a sticky, nasty situation, which are not really good words for it, by the way. It's a rough situation to be a part of. And, you know, there's not going to be a good outcome to this for anybody on any side. And I know, well, Rich, you think your solution is just go back to the church? Yes. Yes, that's my solution. It's not, it's so simple. You know what? Sometimes the simplest answer is the most likely. All right, let's get to our next story here. So we're going to get our two political stories out of the way. Marco Rubio had some fun today at the expense of the Democrats in a Senate hearing where he stated, the U.S. is not withdrawing from the world, Rubio says during a testy hearing in Congress. So a little bit of background. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio publicly supported the Trump administration's foreign policy during a Senate session addressing international affairs. The hearing followed budget cuts and suspended refugee admissions under Trump, prompting Democrats to challenge Rubio on the declining U.S. global influence. Rubio highlighted ongoing efforts to broker ceasefire in Gaza, promoted stability in Syria after Assad's overthrow, and to resume talks with Iran, Russia, and Ukraine. Rubio stated that the cuts would improve America's status internationally, asserted America is back, and praised the migrant deport agreement with El Salvador. And Democrats argued the administration damaged decades of foreign policy investments, we'll call it, alleging discriminatory refugee policies and China opening, urging resistance to extremist policies. So let's just get to the good parts. The first one, let's see, the first one is the exchange between Marco Rubio and former Democratic vice presidential nominee and fake Catholic Tim Kaine, where they talk about the South African refugees. And it's interesting that a point that alternative media, places like myself and others, are making about the refugees, the South African refugees, is actually made it to Rubio's his discussion. Take a listen.
So a well-justified fear of persecution.
Yeah,
You
they
don't
thought
think
that their
means-
farms
you
were
don't
being
think
burned
that
down and they
means
would be
anything?
killed. I think that's a pretty good justification for wanting to come. They're
Okay.
afraid for their lives.
And should it be applied in an even-handed way? That's an easy.
No, our foreign policy doesn't require even-handedness. It
Well, wait,
requires
but
prioritizing
the
the interests of the United States.
phrase says you are entitled to entrance as a refugee if you demonstrate a well-justified fear of persecution.
No,
I
you're
mean,
not entitled,
So
you're
can you have
allowed.
a different standard based upon the color of somebody's skin? Would that be acceptable?
Well, I'm not the one arguing that. Apparently you are, because you don't
No,
like the fact that they're
I'm
white,
just
and that's why
asking
they're
you to
coming.
say that would be
I mean, if you think about it, we've come a long way politically in even 4 years. Do you think during the summer of love, a Republican politician would have said on the House or the in Congress, you don't like those people because they're white? And it's a Cuban who's saying it to a white guy. You got a Cuban saying you don't like these South African refugees. You're questioning why we're bringing them in because you don't like the fact that they're white. That little phrase right there shows how far we've come in discourse. I'm going to play it again.
of somebody's skin? Would that be acceptable?
Well, I'm not the one arguing that. Apparently you are, because you don't like the fact that they're white, and that's why they're
I'm just asking
coming.
you to say that would be unacceptable.
no,
That
I would say that
seem
the
to be
United
a
States-
very easy
The
thing
United
to say.
States has a right to pick and choose who they allow into the United
Even
States.
based on the color of somebody's skin.
No one's. You're the one that's talking about the color of their skin, not me. These
You're
are people whose
refusing to
farms were being
acknowledge
burned
that it
down and they
should
were
be
killed because of the
even-handed.
color of their skin.
Well,
Because they were- Well, you've demonstrated enough because you think anyone should be allowed into this country for any reason because they met a certain
Who has
criteria.
said that?
We are going to prioritize people that come into our country on the basis of what's in the interest of this country. That's a small number of people that are coming in
You
that
said-
particular
you said
case.
this weekend that
but
there
in
would
other
be more.
cases, it's harder to vet. In other cases, it's more difficult. And by the way, the United States admits people every year.
And so I agree. Good on little Marco for actually standing firm on that. 4 years ago, he would have been cowering, and they would have just stumbled and stuttered their way through the conversation. Say whatever you will about Trump, and I'm hard on Trump right now because of the IVF stuff. This is day 2. No other Catholic podcaster has posted, commented, or said anything about the IVF legislation that is supposedly being drawn up that is going to push private insurance companies to cover IVF as an entitlement. No, and this is on little Marco too. Little Marco's a Catholic, and he's not said a word about it either. Of course, he may be saying something behind closed doors. I don't know. I'm not going to give him that pass, but still haven't heard anything from the big Catholic influencers. Nothing about that. But besides that, on Trump, you got to give Trump credit because he's given a spine to guys like little Marco. Little Marco, and this is the thing. I always thought little Marco was a great politician because when he was picked for Secretary of State, everybody said, "Oh, he's a terrible choice." I said, "No. Little Marco is perfect, guys. He is perfect. You want to know why? Because he's a lot like some of the Cardinals, in the College of Cardinals. They work under the conditions of which they are. Oh, well, he was part of the Gang of 8. He was a brand new freshman senator, and he was trying to get his feet wet, and so he went with what the direction he thought was going. He works under the conditions. Under Trump, he's free to be this way, and he's been very stout and very good in that regard. So good for him in that regard. Yeah, so that was the first one. This is the second one between him and Senator Van Hollen, the one that flew down, the New Jersey senator who flew down to El Salvador because he just wanted to look at the migrant. What was his name? Garcia, who was just so suffering. Well, here's little Marco speaking about that.
Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come, you're going to see who you went to defend.
Senator,
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary
No.
Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated
Senator,
comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You've had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court in
Senator-
the United States because
Well,
he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy.
I mean, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. The Maryland Center. For some reason, I thought New Jersey. The Maryland Center, because they called him the Kilmer Garcia. They called him the Maryland man. Thank you, Dean, for helping me out on that. But I mean, like, Rubio just ended that guy. You would not have said, I would not have had little Marco ending ending a senator's career on the committee floor a couple years ago, but I like seeing it. I mean, I'm going to call out, I try to be fair. Good Trump, bad Trump. In the administration, good things, bad things. Good Rubio. I'll take within the job function that he is given. Good Rubio. I'll take it. I absolutely will. I hope behind the scenes he might be channeling to Trump, like, listen, I know it's not my place, but the IVF thing you can't do. But I think the IVF thing is being pushed by more Zionists in the cabinet. Of course, most of the guys are in the cabinet, but yeah, give him where he is. Good for him. Good for him in that regard. He's done what he's needed to do in that regard. So good for that. All right. Let's see here. So good for little Marco. All right. Moving on to our next story of the day. This is one about, let's see. Looks like, all right. I have an issue with the fact that Steve Bannon has relentlessly gone after Pope Leo XIV. Ever since Pope Leo XIV walked out on the loggia. And just take a listen to him and this crazy boomer lady, and we'll talk about it in a moment or two.
You've got kind of a blockbuster clip you pulled. Brian saying, and I think Ben agrees with me, the first order of business should be to open up and let the world see the secret deal with the Chinese Communist Party and then repudiate it. You've got some breaking news on this topic, ma'am?
Hold on a second. Before we get into this, the problem with Bannon, and I'm doing this out of charity. I'm not trying to, cause smoke. Bannon is trying to run or trying to view the Vatican through American politics. We need to see this right now. Open it up. Let's see this stuff. Get the executive orders going. It's not how the Vatican works, man. Pope Leo's got to get his feet set. He's got to get his people in place before he can do any of this stuff. All right. He's not going to go to the whims of what Steve Bannon and this crazy I don't even know if this lady's Catholic. This crazy boomer lady who's going to be screeching in a couple minutes.
Steve, today we find out from the Chinese Cardinal Chow that Prevost has been to China several times.
First of all, that's disrespectful. His name is Pope Leo XIV, woman. Say it correctly. He is Pope Leo XIV. And your explosive interview is that he's been to China. You have accused the Holy Father of traveling.
I mean, why weren't we told that beforehand?
Because it's not your prerogative, lady. You don't get a friggin' vote. You don't get a vote in this. This is not America. This is the Universal Catholic Church. Okay? And they're talking about the chair of St. Peter. And they have is the Vatican perfect? No, it is not infallible. The Catholic Church is infallible. Unfortunately, the dudes who run it are very fallible. But they do not need to answer to you, crazy boomer lady. And they do not need to lay this stuff out to you, crazy boomer lady. Because this is not America. This is the Universal Church. And the way they talk about this is just nuts. I'm sorry, but blank you. Forget you.
I thought this was a poor Peruvian missionary bishop who has just been appointed cardinal. We find he's gone to China several times.
Oh my gosh. This just in, ladies and gentlemen, a cardinal has traveled to a different place.
Did China, the CCP, give their imprimatur to this man as Pope?
By the way, Cardinal Zen, and we'll talk about this in the morning. Cardinal Zen hasn't said anything about this, and I'll talk about Cardinal Zen in a moment. What do you think the Chinese would love? This Chinese cardinal, we don't know if this is the cardinal that was approved by the CCP, right? She's neglecting to mention this. So this Chinese cardinal is leaking this information to crazy boomer lady. CBL. They've leaked it to CBL here. And what does CBL do? CBL runs to Steve Bannon to undermine the Holy Father. He said this. Is this the CCP one that wants you to run and undermine the Holy Father? Maybe nobody has thought of this. Nobody has thought that maybe the Chinese cardinal doesn't like the selection of Pope Leo XIV and ergo is leaking this information to undermine his papacy? No, because these people think of everything in the lens of the two-party politics system.
And Cardinal Chow has said that the new Pope, Pope Leo, will follow in the path of Pope Francis in supporting the deal.
Once again, just like Anthony Stein has said, whether it's in the synod or whether it's this or whether it's that, every cardinal is scrambling to put their stamp on the. He said he's going to do this. We hope he's going to do that. He said he's going to do synodality. He said he's going to do ecumenical. He said, Can we let the Holy Father be the Holy Father? I know the guys who watch, if you watch this show over and over again, you're hearing me say this over and over again, but this has to be said. Lady, the Pope Leo XIV doesn't have 100 days. It's not like a first 100 days of the papacy where he has to show you what he's going to do. Not how this works.
Secret deal that has caused widespread destruction throughout China, not only through the Catholic Church, but also through Christianity. I mean, Steve, this is blockbuster.
No, it's not.
American Catholics around the world should know if this man has been to China several times, is sympathetic to Chinese rule, and the fact that this deal is absolutely the worst possible deal. There is no justification for it. It not only must be revealed immediately, day one, week one of this pontificate.
It's not how it works, Liz. Crazy boomer lady. She may be awesome, but she's 100% wrong on this one. She is so out of bounds on this one. It's not even funny. So I'm done with her. He needs to show us day one. He doesn't need to show you nothing. He doesn't need to show you anything. So we're going to get rid of that. Let's bring this on. This was a timely post that was brought up on X today. So Alex Salvi, who's gotten some really good stuff from inside the Vatican. The Red Scare at the Conclave. The arrival of a vocal China dissident and his fellow cardinals on the edge of their seats as he was expected to challenge the papal frontrunner. Who was the person everybody was worried about? Somebody mentioned it in the chat. Pietro Parolin. He is the architect of the China deal. He is the architect. He is the one that you needed to be frightened of. Maybe they sent Pope Leo XIV several times to China at the behest of Cardinal Parolin to get things done. Just because they sent him somewhere doesn't mean he was acting of his own accord. The Vatican may have sent him there to do things. And as a cardinal or as a person who works within, as a member of the Catholic Church in the hierarchy, if the Pope says, I need you to go to China to do this, you can't be like, I'm not going to do that. I don't think it's a good idea. You're going to say, yes, Holy Father, I'll go. Whatever you need me to do, I'll go take care of it. But Parolin was the architect of the deal between the Vatican and the Chinese Communist Party. Cardinal Joseph Zen of Hong Kong, which, by the way, Liz has decided not to speak about. There's only apparently one Chinese cardinal in all of China. All of China, there's only one cardinal in all of China. That's it. There's only one. There's only one China. And apparently that's the only one we're going to listen to. The only one that we're going to listen to. But Cardinal Zen comes out and he wanted to speak to the congregation of cardinals that was already underway. Now, of course, they already tried to do this. He was allowed to go. He showed up there. Details of Pope Francis's 2018 agreement with China remain undisclosed to this day, but it's largely understood that the deal gave the CCP the authority to appoint its own bishop, with the Vatican retaining veto power over the selection. So my question is this. The cardinal that Liz Yore is describing, is that one under this deal? Is that one under this deal? The two sides extended the agreement in 2024 for another 4 years. Once again, Pope Leo XIV had nothing to do with any of this. That was Pedro Parolin, and everybody was scared that when he was going to get elected, it was going to be cemented. China broke off relations with the Holy See in 1981. Anyway, Zen has been an outspoken critic of the agreement since the beginning. He warned the deal ceded too much power to Beijing and came at the detriment of persecuted Christians. So he showed up in Rome. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why'd you do that? Okay. So he showed up in Rome. And he went to the congregation of the cardinals because he couldn't vote, but he could speak. And he decided to make a statement, but he didn't talk about the CCP. He said, before making my remarks, I ask for forgiveness as I cannot speak on certain matters and must maintain the utmost discretion in my conduct. So who stepped up? Cardinal Burke. This is the big point. Liz Yore is screaming to the high heavens about this. And somebody mentioned, well, Cardinal Zen didn't say much. Cardinal Zen didn't say anything about this. Cardinal Zen had Cardinal Raymond Burke, and who was a big supporter of Pope Leo XIV, who essentially gave his blessing so the conservatives could vote for Pope Leo XIV. Raymond Burke gave his blessing to this. Raymond Burke of the United States, who raised the issue on the final day. He decried the abandonment of Christians in China in the aftermath of the agreement, condemned the lack of transparency behind the negotiation and terms, and called out Parolin by name for his involvement in the deal. It was one of the final messages the cardinal electors would hear before they went home that evening, before the beginning of the conclave. Why am I talking about all this? Because Liz Yore just went on a 3-minute screed about how Provost, he went to China several times. Yet 5 seconds of stupid Rick Barrett on X finding a post says Raymond Burke brought up the agreement to the entire college. It was one of the last speeches. Raymond Burke gave his stamp of approval to Pope Leo XIV, and we don't know, and we hope that Pope Leo XIV, he can't do anything until 2024 anyway. The agreement was extended until in 2024, so we don't know anything. Now, Pope Leo XIV could bring it up, and he could say, I'm not going to continue this. But I think Pope Leo XIV is too smart to not bring it up, because that would give him a negative position in negotiations with the Chinese. If he comes out and he says all this stuff, the Chinese are very reactionary. And guess what? They could probably persecute even more Christians than they do now. If he keeps low and he works back channels between all this stuff, maybe he can work out a better agreement to remove this whole thing. But no, we want to do everything America style. We want to do everything now. First 100 days, hit the ground, show me these things, write the executive orders. Why did you travel here? What's going on? Shut up. Shut your mouth, please. No, I'm nice. I said please. Steve Bannon, day one, him and Jack Posobiec had this whole thing about deep money with China, and that, like, they have relentlessly attacked Pope Leo XIV, relentlessly attacked without evidence. Now you're going to put this one cardinal's name on it, yet there's more than one cardinal in China. And I can tell you for a fact that Cardinal Zen has not said anything negative about Pope Leo XIV, or not said anything about the fact that Pope Leo has traveled anywhere. I can tell you that the Chinese love propaganda, and that the Chinese would love to have the American media attack the first American Pope. But we are too stupid in our race for clicks, and I am trying to say this in the most charitable way. I apologize if this comes off as if I'm angry, because we're not giving the Holy Father a chance, because we are literally running We are running with Chinese propaganda at this point. When I can tell you Raymond Burke supported Leo XIV, and Raymond Burke brought up the China deal to make sure Parolin didn't get picked, so this deal could actually get knocked out. We all know the stories about how Prevost, before he became Pope Leo XIV, as a cardinal, met with Raymond Burke and a bunch of other people. I'm sure this was mentioned. What are your thoughts on this? And the fact that they are so quick to cast doubts on Pope Leo it just makes me really it makes me frustrated, because what are you doing? What gain do you get here by attacking the Holy Father? It's Francis derangement syndrome. And so that's my response. Sorry, Liz, you came off as a screeching lunatic today. You did. And it's a shame that you had to run with this instead of doing 5 more minutes of research. 5 more minutes of, okay, well, this cardinal's saying this. Can somebody find Cardinal Zen? Can we get a statement from Cardinal Zen about this? What about Prevost? Oh, it looks like I'm doing some research. It looks like Cardinal Burke mentioned this before the conclave. Can we reach out to Cardinal Burke and see what Cardinal Burke says? His knowledge about this? Can we do a little bit more research before we run over and start screeching with our hair on fire about something? Viva Pope Leo XIV. And until he does something otherwise, and even then, I'll still pray for the Holy Father. This is Rick Cass. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. I told you this is going to be a Pope Leo XIV Stan account. And I am continuing to do so proudly. Don't attack the Holy Father unless you have one. Traveling to China is not an indictment that he will support the China deal. It's not anywhere, shape, or form. All right, last story of the night. I always save my Pope Leo one because that's my fierce segment. Love the Holy Father. I will defend the Holy Father as best I can. I'm sorry, Holy Father, you have somebody like me defending you. But I do the best I can. All right. Last story of the night. I'm sure most of you are not going to be happy about this, but I got to keep you informed. Sylvester Stallone's absence looms large over planned First Blood prequel. Now, let's be real. First Blood is an absolute masterpiece of a film. It's actually kind of crazy how different First Blood is from the rest of the Rambo films. It's a deep character dive. Did you know he was supposed to unalive himself in the first draft? I think in the book he does, and it tested so poorly in theaters that they actually rewrote it to the different ending. But it's crazy that they are they've stretched out Rambo as far as they could. They had Rambo Last Blood, Rambo whatever the case may be, and now they're like, prequels are terrible ideas as well. I don't like it. I don't like prequels as a concept because there's no stakes in a prequel. There's no stakes in a prequel. Oh, they do, Bellator. Interesting. Be careful what you write because it's on the screen now, so I don't really care. Just be careful. But prequels are terrible just because there's no stakes in them. Oh, we have a prequel of First Blood. I wonder if Rambo's going to get out alive. Oh, we now have the scene where he meets the general. Wow. I'm so glad we have an $85 million film to show this, or him going through training, or him in Nam, or whatever. So the world of John Rambo is expanding, but not the way some fans might expect. 2 very different projects are exploring the iconic action hero's origins, one on the big screen and one in a graphic novel. However, despite covering similar ground, these prequels are not connected, and the absence of Sylvester Stallone from the film raises big questions about the future of the franchise. Millennium Medium has just announced John Rambo, a film prequel to the 1982 classic First Blood at the Cannes Market, the Cannes Film Festival. The movie, directed by Jalmari Helander, Susi, which apparently is a really good movie, will tell the story of a young John Rambo during the Vietnam War. Do we need that, though? We don't need a story about John Rambo in the Vietnam. It's covered enough in First Blood. You get enough flashbacks to get an understanding. While the plot is still under wraps, the film promises to show how Rambo became the battle-hardened hero audiences know. Sisu director Jalmari Hellender is set to direct from the screenplay written by duo Roy Haynes and Shorabe Nuzavir. The aim is to start principal photography in October in Thailand, with casting still early. There's a catch. Sylvester Stallone, the actor and creative force who defined the character for over 4 decades, is not involved. Producers said the door is still open. This is a money thing for Stallone if fitting role arises, but for now, the new chapter is moving over without his input. Meanwhile, fans can already dive into Rambo's early years through the graphic novel First Kill. The comic just happens to be co-written by Sylvester Stallone himself, teaming with veteran comic writer Chuck Dixon. So there you go. You have that. The reason why Stallone's not involved is because, it's a small studio and then they don't have the money to pay him. But if you're going to do a First Blood movie and you want to make your money back, you got to pay Stallone. Now people will be like, what about Creed? If they did the Creed movies without Stallone, the first and second one, they would have bombed. Michael B. Jordan, great actor. Ryan Coogler is a very, very talented film director. But the movie would not have had the punch, for lack of a better term, that it did with Sylvester Stallone in it. And I think people are starting to say, oh, we can do these things without him. You can't. I'm sorry. You just can't. You can't do these films without him. So if you really want to make your money back, you got to find a way. Either cut him in on the back end with points, right? However, percentage of the gross profit, something. Because if you do a First Blood film or First Blood prequel without Stallone's input, the guy has embodied the character for 40 years. These guys know these characters. They actually know this intellectual property. Well, if they're filming Thailand, crotchety, then I don't think it's going to be all CGI jungle. I hope it's not. But hopefully, to save, if it's going to be, let's be real, CGI does cut your budget. It really does, because it saves. I hate it, but for smaller films, CGI is a lifesaver. But they probably will. Anyway, I hope they find a way to get him in there, but I'm not counting on it. And if he doesn't get in there, then I think it's the best it could be is a mid-film. It won't be anything to write home about. But there you go, folks. More destruction of the properties that you love so dear. And that is it. This is for this episode of Rickcast here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Do me a favor. I want you to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all the fun things to help the show grow and evolve as it has been. Thank you to everybody watching on Getter, on Rumble, on YouTube, and on X. You guys are fantastic. My bar rats, you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. You make this show so much better than anything I could. So thank you for being a part of the show. Everybody on Getter, thank you for watching. Everybody on Rumble, thank you guys for watching as well. I will talk to you all on Wednesday. Here's a huge programming note for Thursday. Huge programming note for Thursday. The show will not start at 6 on Thursday. The show will probably start 6:45, maybe even 7, because I'm going to go see Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. And of course, the only film time, the movie's 2 hours and 49 minutes. I kid you not. I'll say that again. Mission Impossible Final Reckoning is 2 hours and 49 minutes. And there's a show at 3 and a show at 7. So there's no way I can get to any of these shows without doing the show to normal time. So I'm going to go at the 3 o'clock showing. 3 hours. That'll drop me out at what? 5:50? That'll give me enough time to get home. I'll have the show set up beforehand. And we'll do the show as soon as I get back. So just a programming note, Thursday, Rickcast will start at the earliest at 6:30, depending on when I get back from watching Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. So just be aware of that, please. If you say, where's Rick? It's 6 o'clock and he's not here. It's because I'm fighting traffic to get back from watching Tom Cruise 3 hour and 49 minute epic known as Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. So there's that. But outside of that, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Wednesday's the normal time. I will see you then. God bless. And until that day comes, ladies and gentlemen, free Dexter Taylor. Wrong button.